This is Tutorial 1-8, working with attribute tables in the GIS Tutorial 1 Basic Workbook. We're going to be starting off right where we left off in Tutorial 1-7, so all I have to do is I have to delete this. I'm going to save, clear any selections that I've had. I'm going to save this as Tutorial 1-8. I'm going to use the bookmark to get back to the 48 states. In my table of contents, I'm going to make sure that cities are selectable. Now, I went in and created two versions of cities to kind of help you show how changing selection options can affect a map when you have two different point layers. So I'm going to get rid of one and set this one back to what it was supposed to be. So I'm going to use the default for selection, and I'm going to clear my definition query. And you'll learn about definition queries later on. While we're zoomed out, we're going to right-click our US cities and open up the attribute table. Or you can use the Control-T shortcut. So I'm going to open it up. And I like my attribute tables kind of large. That's a good size for me. Now I'm going to close this real quick, and I'm going to try that Control-T, and that opens it up. If I select over here, I could just hit Control-T, and that opens up that one, and that one. So I have four tables open, and you will see them down here as the feature name, and you have to select tabs. Now I'm going to close counties and streets for Colorado. We're going to be focusing on US cities, but I'm going to show you a few things about using two different attribute tables at the same time that the tutorial doesn't really go into. Now, the tutorial wants us to scroll down until we find Chicago. There aren't many features in here. There's only 57. So we can go in here and just look for it. And it's right here. If I click on it, it's the 44th record. And if I move this over, it's highlighted when I select it. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes if you're seated far away from your monitor, it might be difficult to see. So we can change options to how we can view it. So we can go to Appearance, and we can change the size. We can go up to 12 and hit Apply, and you can see now it's much larger. It might be easier to read. We can go to 10, but I'm going to stick with the 8 that it was originally. But that is one way you can change it. And you can also change how records are selected, what color they are, just like you did with the selection tools before, but this will only be for inside the table. Now that we've selected Chicago, we can clear it. You can clear it up at the main toolbar, or you can use the toolbar inside the attribute table. So I'm going to use that one and turn it off. Now they want us to use the selection tool, and I have to change it back to a rectangle. Select the 3 cities in Florida. They've been selected, but if you want to just focus on these 3 cities and not be distracted by all the others, you can click on this button down here and only view the selected features. By clicking that, you'll see that all the others are hidden. If we go over to the table options, which is the first icon in the attribute table, you can choose switch selection in here that the book wants you to use, and that worked. You can also use the shortcut key that's right here up at the top, and just clicking that will bring you back and forth. And down here it tells you how many are selected out of the total. So if we go back to just our 3, we have our 3 of 57. And by clicking that, you can see that the selection outside on the map has also changed. So we're going to clear our selection. Now this is a major issue right here. When you have just selection showed, if I were to click out of this, then save my map and go work on another project or go home for the weekend, and then come back the next week, and I were to open up my attribute table, I might be like, oh no, where are all my attributes? So if you ever open up an attribute table and it looks like this, but you know that there are features because you can see them on the map, make sure you check this is set to show all records, and then you'll see them. Very common occurrence for people that are just beginning or getting used to this version of ArcGIS. Another issue when working in an attribute table is sometimes the fields you want are not next to each other. So we're going to click on the gray title of the POP 2000 field, which is this one right here. And I'm going to click and hold it, and I'm going to drag it and place it right next to the name. So you got to click and drag it, and you can see that there's this red line, and that will show you where it's going to be placed. So I just placed it next to the name. Another thing that I can do is I can right click a field and choose how it's ordered. I can do ascending order or descending order. So if we choose ascending order, it's alphabetical, going A to Z. I could also go in and do descending, and we have Z to A. Double clicking it will also do the same thing. It'll switch it between ascending and descending. Now for POP 2000, we're going to go to descending, and we can now see what cities are the most populated in 2000. For the year turn, they want us to click and drag the POP 2007 and put it right next to the 20 or 2000. Sometimes it'll take a little practice moving these. You can't just click and immediately drag. You have to first highlight and then click again. And they want this field in descending order as well. Now I'm going to show you how to do an advanced sorting. So we're going to right click state, and you're going to go to advanced sorting. And I'm going to just turn this off for now. And we're going to use state as the first column and have it ascending. Then we're going to use POP 2000 and POP 2007, and both of those are going to be in descending order. Then we're going to click OK. So what this did was it placed all our states in alphabetical order, starting with Arizona, going all the way down to Wisconsin. And then it placed it with the most populated cities in descending order. The book wants you, for the your turn, to go in and do this with other fields. I'll allow you to do that on your own. Now, for the next part, we're going to look at some statistics. They want us to close the attribute table and zoom out to the 48 states. I'm already at that area, and I already have US states. Actually, it got closed. So I'm going to right-click that and open attribute table, because I want my US cities open, because I'm going to show you something in a little bit. And using this, I'm going to clear my selection. They want us to make US states the only selectable feature. So I'm going to go in and do that, because that's more practice getting used to that. Then I'm going to shrink this just a little bit. So using the selection tool, I'm going to select Texas. Then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select the other states that surround it. I advise not doing that too quickly clicking. It seems when I do that, it causes the program to crash. Then we can use the show selected only, and we have just the values for the features that we selected. Now, to do statistics on this, you wouldn't want to have to sit here and look at these and add them up yourself. So what you can do is you can right-click on a field and look at the statistics in there. So we're going to scroll over until we get to POP 2010, and here it is. So I can right-click this and do statistics, and we can see that the mean is 7,681,076. The Your Turn wants you to look at statistics from other states. Now, you could close the statistics window and right-click and open up the statistics window for that, or you can go to this drop-down menu and kind of browse up to POP 2000. You can see that it went up 1 million. You can also do this for other states that you want to select for. Next, we're going to be looking at how to turn fields off. As you can see, a lot of the fields that we're dealing with in the US states layer, there's a lot of them, and we might not need all of them. There are 2 ways that you can do this. If there's just a few, you can right-click and you can turn field off. Never, never delete a field. Once you press this, it's gone for good. So we're going to X out of this, and we're going to look at a different way. I'm going to clear my selection on how to select what fields you see. So we're going to double click on US states, and that's going to open up the properties. And we're going to go to the Fields tab. And in here, you can determine which ones you want. So sometimes when you have a lot of fields, it's easier to turn them all off and then turn on the ones that you want, because it's normally fewer clicks. So we're going to hit the turn all fields off. And then you're going to turn on state name. And you're going to scroll down until you see white, black, which one is that? I think that's American Native, Asian, other, Hispanic. Then we're going to click OK. We're going to open up our attribute table. And like I said before, because I cleared my selection, it looks like I have no attributes. So I have to go to Show All Records. And now we can see that it's a much more manageable screen. We can actually close this or down to where we can see more of the map. This is where the book ends. It wants you to do a Your Turn, where you do turn off all fields except for population 2010, for race, for CO counties. But I'm going to show you how to do some other things that are really useful in a attribute table. First thing we're going to look at, and I'm going to turn on the magnifier, is you can see that looking at these values can be kind of difficult without separators. So if you right-click a field, you can go to Properties, and you can turn on the 1000 separators by going to Numeric, and then Show 1000 Separator. Click OK, then OK again. These values are much easier to see and read. In fact, to make this a little bit easier for you to read, I'm going to go back in, Appearance, and I'm going to change this to 12. Okay. And if a field gets kind of cut off, you can increase the width, just like you would in Excel. This field opened because I tried expanding the last one. So I'm going to right click that, and I'm going to turn field off so it disappears again, and I'm going to clear any selection. That's one way making a table easier to read, is adding in those 1000 separators. Another thing we can do is I'm going to go in and go to Properties for US states, and I want to turn on, shape area will often work, so I'm going to click OK. It's been added here. Now you can see that there's a lot of decimal places, and sometimes that can be kind of annoying. It can make a value look much larger than it really is. So we're going to right click that, go to Properties, go to Numeric, And we can change the number of decimal places to, you could do it to where it's a whole number, or you could do it to where it's just one decimal place or two. And let's show the 1000 separator. Click OK. And now this field is much easier to read. I'm not sure what units it's using for area because these are really small, so these might not be appropriate for actually calculating area. Another important thing to do in attribute tables is sometimes you want to look at different tables at the same time. Now if I open up US cities, I'm going to go up and change their appearance to 12. I'd have to go back and forth looking at it this way. I can go up to options and go to arrange tables and do new horizontal group. And this will let me look at both tables one on top of the other. I can go in and arrange tables, move to previous group, and then try the vertical, and they're side by side. Preference wise, I prefer horizontal rather than vertical. Now, going back to US cities, they wanted you to go down to Chicago and find Chicago. If you were looking at a table with thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions of records, that would not be reasonable. Even going up and sorting by name would take a while in a very large table. So how would you be able to find Chicago? Well, the quickest way is to use the select by attribute. And you'll learn about this later on, but I think it's really important to learn about it as soon as you learn about attribute tables. So up here, next to the switch selection, is the select by attribute button. So we're going to click that. And that opens up our select by attribute window. And this works kind of like an equation. So we're looking for Chicago. So we have to choose a method first. We're going to create a new selection. And that's the only one we're going to worry about. We'll worry about the others when you focus on this in a different tutorial. So you would want name. And we're looking for Chicago, so we know it's an exact value. So you can do the equals. Now you can get unique values, and then I'll list all of the cities. Now rather than scroll through those, which would be the same as going through the table, you can just start typing in Chicago. And then you can select it. Now I'm going to turn on my magnifier. You can see that over here that there are quote marks. That's because this is a text field. And then if I hit apply, it is selected. There are a lot of different ways you can use the select by attribute to quickly select the attributes that you want in your attribute table. So I'm going to close this and clear my selection. Another useful thing about attribute tables is they can be docked just like a side panel can. Often I will use the bottom to dock my attribute table. That way you can always have it open and it's not really in the way. And you can make it to where it collapses. Then if you want it, you just click on the tab and it pops back up. And you can put it in either one that you want. In the earlier versions of ArcGIS with the 9.3, you used to be able to click a minimize and it would appear down here until you want to maximize it. They did away with that. So that's one thing that I kind of miss that I wish they would bring back. You can export these to files that could be opened up in Excel and everything, and you'll learn about that as you go through the GIS tutorial workbooks. Another function that they kind of went past and didn't really explain was in US states we got closed a lot of fields. What happens if you want to turn those back on and quickly? First I'm going to go up and change my appearance back to 8. To turn on all the fields that have been turned off, you can go up to options and turn all fields on. And that brings everything back. And that saves you a trip of having to go back into properties and check the turn on all fields there. That concludes this video.